Okay, we're on the air. Welcome to the Lovecraft eZine Sunday show. We do this every Sunday at 6 o'clock Eastern, every Saturday night at midnight Eastern. Let me put Pete on the screen while I'm talking here. There you go. Um, we had a great discussion last night, which I noticed quite a few people seem to like, about Del Toro and the possible At the Mountains of Madness movie. So I thought a good topic to start off today's conversation would be, we've not talked about this in a long time, and in the meantime, Lovecraft eZine's gotten quite a few more followers, so people may not have heard us talk about this. There's always something new to talk about. And favorite movies with a Lovecraftian theme. And of course, we can go on from there and talk about whatever you guys want. I would like to say, first of all, before we get into that, two things about Mr. Pulver. I'm glad he's back, and I know he's not all the way healed, but I know he's on the mend, so I'm really glad to see him. And the second thing is, I believe it was yesterday was your birthday, is that right?
Yep.
So happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody go to Joe's page and wish him happy birthday and send him a $100 gift certificate to the book depository.
Hang on, let me post my Amazon wish list.
Joe is 6 months older than me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Rick's a veritable baby.
And speaking of Joe, on this topic, I wanted to start off my list with AM 1200, and Joe's the guy that actually introduced me to that movie. Really, talking to the audience, anyone that has not seen AM 1200, you really should see it. I should post a link to it. No, I do have a link to it. If you go to Lovecraft eZine and my recommended movies page, there's a link to it. So that's easy. You can buy the DVD. It's a short film. What is it, guys? About 40 minutes long? Something like that?
Yeah, 43 minutes is my recollection.
Yeah.
It's not 45 minutes. You know,
you know, when you talk about Lovecraftian movies, I'm not talking about just adaptations of Lovecraft stories. I'm talking about that too, but movies with a Lovecraftian theme. And that's one of them. That's a really, really good movie, short film. It's about this guy who, well, let's just say, I don't want to give away too much. He gets into a little trouble at work and leaves, and he's driving across the desert, which I always like that background, that atmosphere. And he tunes in on the radio and starts to hear some weird things coming over his radio. So, and goes on from there. To say more would be to ruin it, but it's a very, very good film.
You know, now that you summarize it, I realize in a strange way it's a little similar to the beginning of Psycho. Except you got a man.
Oh yeah, it's certainly the crime and driving off into the desert. That's certainly a tip of the hat to Psycho.
Yeah.
You know, which is something I like. I thought it was really well done. And when somebody is, you know, paying respects to something they adore, provided they do it well, I don't see anything wrong with that. And I think David Pryor, the writer, producer, director, did a phenomenal job in paying homage to Psycho.
Yeah, and there's also some very, very spooky moments in that film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, out there in the dark in the desert, nothing around.
Yeah, it's got great creep factor, you know, which is a big plus. It manages to be atmospheric up until it decides to pull the plug on atmospheric and, you know, fill the bathtub with blood, so to speak. Yeah. Well, you know, Mike, I've been talking about this movie since I saw it at the film festival in Portland. I don't even know how many years it's been now.
I think at least 4 or 5, and you told me about
Yeah,
it a year or two ago. I
I would say
contacted
4 or 5.
Yeah.
Is that the film festival where you actually got to watch a movie?
Hmm?
I've watched a lot of movies at the film
Oh, at the film
festival.
festival.
One year I was one of the screenplay judges. One year that's about all I did was watch movies. You know.
That's before we were around, Pete. So now when he goes, he hangs with us instead of watching movies.
That's right.
Well, you know, now I know so many people. You know, you talk to somebody here, and then you get pulled over there, and you see what it's like, Mr. Davis.
There were conventions. Ultimately, conventions end up as for socializing rather than buying or
Yes,
viewing.
it's summer camp. You're with all your buddies. You're having a blast. You know, you're laughing and joking around. And again, you know, I mean, we're always here talking about the Lovecraftian community, and we're always talking about, you know, somebody lives in Indiana and doesn't know anybody, and somebody lives in Kansas and doesn't know anybody.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, you know, you're someplace like the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival in Portland, and it's a big, you know, it's a family reunion. So you're hanging out with family. It's fun
Yeah,
and
it's hard
joking
to
around.
stop talking and then go into the theater because you're having so much fun talking to other Lovecraft fans, other weird fiction.
And Mr. Rollick, I show up for everything I'm scheduled to appear at. even you know, and I'll even drink with lowlifes like you.
That's right.
You know.
Does that imply that Pete missed something that he should have been at?
No. I'm just saying. What about he's busting my can because I didn't see a film last time. But where was he the year I was on 11 panels and had a reading?
I didn't even have a short story written then.
You know. Sure you did.
Well,
I think
Well,
next
not-
time I don't want to be on any panels at all. I just want to enjoy it.
Well, no. Next time I want like a 3-hour King in Yellow panel and 2 bottles of scotch.
yeah, because you don't. And by the way, you don't switch scotch to moonshine. In
Well,
the
I
middle
didn't drink the moonshine.
Yeah, well-
I put like 5 drops of moonshine in my glass so that I could see how bad it was. I mean, it was like putting 1 dot of Tabasco on your fingertip and then on your tongue.
Yeah, well,
I
Kelly
do
handed
have a
me the
recording of that. I do
Really
have a
hot.
recording of that, but the sound audio of the film festival, that King and Yellow panel you guys did, but the audio turned out kind of badly. I need someone that's good at this stuff to maybe see if they can do something with the audio, and then I could post that on the YouTube channel. That would be nice. It was a great talk.
And you know, reaction was really great to the panel.
Mhm.
And I think people really like the fact that, you know, there's Cisco and me and Pete and ST and Kelly Young, and we're sitting up there. It was more like sitting around in the living room. You know? I mean, instead of some dry presentation or, you know, some...
Well, it wasn't
that there
dry, I'll
weren't-
tell you that.
It wasn't dry, no.
It was not dry.
No.
But Joe, you know
No.
you're
Plenty of
right.
liquor.
It might even work better to do that again with like a series of couches facing each other and the audience behind us,
Hmm.
so that in a circle, so that we're all talking to each other, and the other audience is behind us, and we're not, because I could barely see you.
Well, you know, the next time what we need to do is make a semicircle.
Yeah.
So we're sort of like facing each other, and
Yeah.
yet we still face the audience, because that way, if we make an obscene gesture, at least they're able to see us. You know.
Or if you say
'Cause
something important.
I've been known to punch ST, so, you know, they might want to see that part.
So,
you know,
to try and drag us back on the topic.
I'd give a lot for that video.
Let's get back to
and I didn't realize you guys were doing something. I thought it got canceled. So one thing, you guys talked about the Mountains of Madness.
Yeah, last night.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. I've always thought he's sooner or later going to make this movie, whether or not that came up. What I find interesting, and I don't know if this came up, but I'll just bring it up quick, is it seems like he's willing to take a PG-13 now.
Yeah, that's actually was the main thing we talked about.
Right. Well, I always wondered about that in the past. If you look at the Lord of the Rings, you know, there were 3 films planned. There was a 9-hour shooting script and a 12-hour shooting script. They planned for the DVD. You know, we're going to have theatrical releases, then we're going to have the DVD. There are all kinds of movies coming out constantly for the past, 5 years, 6 years, whatever, unrated director's cuts.
Yeah.
Why he couldn't have...
We also brought up the point that it was pretty easy to Google a list of PG-13 movies that it's hard to believe they're PG-13. I mean, because they push the envelope. So a PG-13 rating does not mean it's going to be a bad movie by any means.
You know, even before you had PG-13, you could have a severed head in a movie.
It's so easy to shoot those kind of scenes that he wants to shoot, and then for a theatrical release to get a PG-13 is to just trim this, trim that, and, you know, it's sort of like the shower scene in Psycho. You can show things that make people think they just saw something when they haven't in actuality actually viewed it. So
you're echoing everything Mike and Pete said last night. Mike, I think, brought up the shower scene.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So long story short, yeah, PG-13. It'll still be a good movie. Getting back to this topic, there's a newer movie. I think we've talked about it a little bit in the past. The Banshee chapter. Pete, I think you've seen it.
Yeah, and
right?
I started rewatching it last night because it just became instant on Netflix.
Oh, did it? Okay, I'll have to rewatch it then. It's a good movie.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You know, and Banshee chapter, Absentia, Mr. Jones. These are all films that are basically made on credit cards and very small budgets. And I'm willing to forego a little bad acting and a little clumsy editing and photography. If you've got a good story and you pull it off, you know, I'll sing your praises.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
You know,
and it seems if you really pull it off, and someone with a very limited budget, and it's not absolutely perfect, which how could it be? It seems a little nitpicky to look for those things. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Gareth Edwards did. He went from doing Monsters, which is, you know, a great movie.
Yeah.
It focused on character development and suspense, and saves the big monsters to the very end. He goes from that to Godzilla. That's a huge jump, and I think he did okay.
And Mike Flanagan just got that. He's going to be directing that Stephen King movie. He's the one that did Absentia.
Okay.
Gerald's Game.
Gerald's Game? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but a small budget isn't necessarily a bad thing, because a lot of these directors, when they can't afford this and they can't afford that, they get really creative.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Michael Flanagan, the director of Absentia, told me, he said one of the scariest scenes in the movie was done with a twig.
Hmm?
Right at the end of the movie, where Katie Parker's, I won't reveal anything, but there's a he did that scene with a twig. I guess that's all I can say without ruining the plot.
Okay.
So, but that just goes to your point that he didn't have any budget. He used a twig to make something extremely scary.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you have somebody who has his creative talent. Necessity becomes the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's an interview with the Chiodo brothers who did Killer Clowns from Outer Space,
Mm-hmm.
and they talked about how there's this one scene where one of the clowns, monster clowns, uses a popcorn gun to shoot popcorn at people. And they went to their props guy and they said, "We need a gun that shoots popcorn." And he said, "Okay, I need like $5,000. I forget what the number was." And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, the directors are like, "Yeah, we can't afford that." And their carpenter came over and said, "How long does it have to last?" And they said, "It's in the movie for 30 seconds." He said, "I will build you a popcorn gun for $20 or something that'll last 30 seconds." And but that's the reality of making a film. You don't need these props to last forever. And I am, on the flip side, I'm reminded of when they shot Dune, the Atreides castle and the Harkonnen castle were all hand carved. All that carving is real. It was built by master woodworkers and stonemasons. And after it was done, it was all bulldozed, just destroyed.
Yeah.
So it's completely.
That story about the popcorn gun reminds me of Patrick McGowan's old TV show, The Prisoner.
Right.
Which is the most vivid symbol of that show is this thing called Rover, which is this white ball which smothers you.
Right.
Which originally was supposed to be a very complex machine that kept breaking down. So they just used weather balloons.
Yeah, and it's horrific.
Yeah.
And very effective because it's so simple and so unassuming. It's a giant ball that bounces across the beach,
Right.
and you don't want anything to do with it.
You guys remember a movie called The Changeling with George C. Scott?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I know of it.
Well, I'm sure it's not because of budget, but one of the scariest scenes in the movie is basically a ball bouncing down some steps.
Yeah.
And, it's a really great example of creating mood with very little, creating terror with very little.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is how many movies have we seen that perhaps didn't have budget for extravagant sets, so we turn the light way down, where our visual references are a little something here or a snatch of something there, or odd camera angles that don't take us all the way up to where we would, they would be required to build or have something large and expensive. Again, it forces people to be creative, and we've seen it repeatedly over in the medium for a long time in a lot of different ways.
Well, here is, let me read the synopsis of the Banshee chapter. And again, I've got a list of these movies. Now, this is just my list, may differ from Pete or Rick or Joe's. But at Lovecraft eZine, there's a movies tab at the top, and you can click on Mike's recommended Lovecraftian movies. Banshee chapter. On the trail of a missing friend who had been experimenting with mind-altering drugs, a young journalist, aided by a rogue counterculture writer, he was great, by the way, finds herself drawn into the dangerous world of top-secret government chemical research and the mystery of a disturbing radio signal of unknown origin. And it was sort of a The Lovecraft story just went right out of my head. I hate it when Fibro does.
From Beyond.
From Beyond, thank you. Yeah, the story, not the movie. Kind of that theme. So it's definitely a movie worth watching. I'm not saying it's the greatest movie you'll ever see, but I do think it's a good movie with Lovecraftian themes.
Yeah.
I don't want to monopolize throwing out movies here. You guys want to throw out a movie before I throw out another one?
Well, I haven't seen that one, but I agree with you. I really enjoyed Absentia a lot. I thought the acting was superb. You know, was it a low budget movie? Yeah, but it didn't. When I was watching it, it didn't feel like one.
No,
he told me that he's a huge Lovecraft fan, and it was a real compliment to have Lovecraft fans see the Lovecraftian themes in the film.
Yeah, I liked the characters. I liked what was going on. I was drawn into it. If there were any little defects or deficiencies, it was well done enough where I didn't notice them. Perhaps I could go back and if I wanted to take it apart, but my initial viewing was this was a really enjoyable film.
And you know what? It did not lose that with the ending. The ending was superb, I thought. And the ending was ambiguous in the minds of some of the cops, for example, or friends, if you remember that. I thought it was the ending lived up to the rest of the film, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, very good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would give the film high marks all the way across the board.
You guys... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to ask if you guys have seen The Burrowers.
I like The Burrowers. That's the Western, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like The Burrowers. I also liked Grabbers.
Grabbers, that's that recent one, isn't it?
Yeah, 2012.
I really liked it a lot. It's a funny film too.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether I should put it on my list or not. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think if you're going to do, in many ways, it's almost like an Irish Tremors.
Yeah.
It's a horror movie, but it's got a lot of comedy to it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not overly comedic.
So I gather there are things underneath the earth in this movie.
No, there are things that come out of the ocean.
Oh, the ocean. Okay.
So.
It's a seacoast. It's a coastal town.
Right.
Yeah.
We can if we're just listing them off. X the Unknown, John Carpenter's apocalyptic trilogy, Prince of Darkness, The Thing, and At the Mouths of Madness.
Right.
And I adore Mountains of Madness. I love The Thing.
Mouth of Madness.
You mean Out of the Mouth of Madness?
Out of the Mouth of Madness. Yes. Yes. Let me have another drink because my liver's in shock.
That's easy to do. I've done that myself. It's such a similar title.
Well, he did it on purpose.
Good movie.
Wanted to catch our attention.
Right. Since you made the mistake, I'll just point out I'm only 3 months younger than Joe. Rather than
All
6.
Right. Of the three, I think that
we still look good, Rick.
But most of John Carpenter's films, even what is it? The original Fog. There's Lovecraftian references in that.
Yeah, and Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness. I think Prince of Darkness is a very effective Lovecraftian, non-Lovecraftian film.
I enjoyed it a lot.
It hits all the right notes and doesn't drag you anywhere close to the mythology. It works with a mythology that Catholicism, which pretty much everybody knows. but then turns it on its head and says it's all smoke and mirrors. So there's that.
And Alice Cooper is one of the homeless
Fabulous.
people.
Yeah, he plays a great homeless person.
It's almost a Richard Tierney, Robert M. Price type movie.
It is. It is.
With the theological implications.
Yes. I already mentioned X the Unknown. Island of Terror with the silicon bone-eating monsters.
Hammer movie with Peter Cushing.
Right.
And I want to say the most pivotal scene in that was the axe. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I mean, I just said, what just happened there?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about a movie that gets a bad rap with some Lovecraft fans. Cthulhu, the gay, isn't he a professor, something like that?
I don't. You say that it has a bad rap. I think it's a fabulous film.
Yeah, I like the movie.
I like the film. I sat there with Stan Sargent, Willem, and ST sat in a row in front of us. We all liked the film. Bob Price liked the film. The film was well received the year that it was at the film festival.
Let me put it another way. When I see it discussed online, it seems to be real divisive. Some people love it, some people hate it.
Oh, okay. Well,
I like it. I like it a lot. And from the very beginning, I've said this before, but from the very beginning of this movie, there's this feeling of doom. That it's inescapable. Which I think Ligotti said is a good description of weird fiction.
Yeah.
But it's an adaptation of Shadow over Innsmouth. The fact that I've seen comments about why do the main character have to be gay? Well, why does he not have to be? First of all, what difference does it make? But that said, him being gay actually figured into. There was a good reason for him to be gay as far as the story. He didn't have kids. That's one reason. So I can't get into the movie too much without spoiling the plot, of course. But I really think it's a good film and really worth seeing. And
I also think I think that whole gay angle was to make it relevant to the modern era. It was a nice way of modernizing Shadow over Innsmouth, without destroying the spirit of the story.
Right, but it also sets him up sets our character up, our protagonist, as an outsider.
That's something I completely concur with. Unfortunately, to too large a segment of society, gay people are ostracized, and that does, by making the character gay, establish him even right away as an outsider.
And it explains why he had to leave.
Yep.
And why he dreads coming back.
Yeah.
Yep. I think those are all. Those are positive points that help that film.
Yeah.
They are not negatives. They don't detract. And I thought that was all very well done.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that shouldn't be an issue.
No, I think but I think it helps the film immensely.
It does.
I don't think it would be as good of a story if he was
saying, to the detractors, it's like, take your heads out of your asses.
Yeah. Joe, I don't think it would be as good of a story if the main character was straight, because there's some great reasons to make him gay. You guys just brought up those reasons.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, hell, we could have played "Small Town Boy" as the soundtrack to the opening.
Mhm.
Which I love that song, by the way. No, it's. I think it's a positive. And like I said, it was so well done. It's certainly contextually we now have a modern tale. It's explaining this, it's explaining that.
Mhm.
It sets up a lot of things without a lot of exposition. A lot of things immediately become clear, and that's a positive in film where you don't have a voiceover. You know, I mean, Mike, you just talked about a ball bouncing down the stairs.
Mhm.
In a certain way, it's the same kind of effect. You know, this one little thing can explain so much, or lead the viewer in a certain direction. I consider that a big plus.
Well, the way to view it, Cthulhu is sort of like the Val Lewton version of Shadows over Innsmouth. Well, another movie, Dagon by Stuart Gordon, is sort of more the Hammer film Roger Corman view of Shadow over Innsmouth.
Yeah, good point. We do have two modern adaptations of Shadow over Innsmouth.
And I think there's a third one. There's a Japanese version that we haven't seen yet. It's listed in Lovecraft Goes to the Movies or whatever that book is.
Okay.
Lurker in the Lobby.
Yeah, that's the name. Yep.
I don't know the movie you're talking about, but I know what the book is.
I think someone else is working on it too. I'd have to check my email. I think it's now in post-production. It's a foreign film, and I don't remember which country right now, but he said he's going to contact me when they're done. So that'll be interesting too.
Guys, just so you know, I'm in the middle of a very bad thunderstorm. My lights are flickering, so if I lose power,
Okay.
I'll be
Really
gone.
you just arranged it for cinematic effect.
No,
Come on.
I thought you were reanimating a corpse.
Well, no, that's in the basement.
Yeah, I mean, not like West, more like Victor Frankenstein.
Yes,
Or at least the movie versions.
with my Tesla coils.
Yeah, there you go. And while we're starting out here with lower budget films, Robert Capoletto's Pickman's Muse is one
Oh yeah.
that I enjoyed a lot.
Which is the Horner of the Dog adaptation.
Right.
Yep.
Another one of my where it's well done.
Well done, well acted. Like Absentia, it's like the actors, did their job. I became interested in the story. I became interested in them. And, if there's any deficiencies, I don't recall them because, like any other good film, I got into the storyline. I got into the characters.
Yeah, when we were at the film festival, I only really got to see two movies. Vomica, which I thought was pretty good, and The Sunderland Experiment, which it's set in essentially a desert town that's been taken over by an alien. I think it's Shub-Niggurath supposedly.
Okay.
And it's horrifically acted, and the camera work is okay. But
did you say horrifically acted?
Well, yeah. I mean, basically
horribly acted.
Horribly acted. It's horribly acted. But the storyline was so compelling that I was able to sit through that whole thing. And at the end, I think, this guy had a vision, and he was able to achieve it. And, and you look at it, and you look at the credits, and he's, like, employing all his best friends, and his father, and his brother, and his sister. They're all in the film. They have no training. But they got behind this guy and pulled it off. And I think it's a pretty decent film.
Which brings up a really good point. When it comes to, is that a good Lovecraftian movie, or a good movie for that matter, it's always gray. I mean, you can't really say, okay, that one was great or that one was horrible. You know, you enjoyed this part of it, you didn't enjoy this part of it. And maybe the guy, in fact, probably did the best with the hand he was dealt, which was a low budget.
Right.
You know.
The other film that I did not see at the film festival, but I first saw on, Schlock Theater back in the '70s was Equinox, the film with Fritz Leiber in it.
I haven't seen that one either.
Just stunning forced perspective movie where they couldn't really afford great special effects, so they had the characters fighting giant monsters, and you put the little statue, little animatronic thing you have here right in front of the camera, and you put your character actors out there, and they fight, and it looks like they're right there with each other. Is it really good? No, but that's the technology you have, and
it's an enjoyable film, but it looks like bad Ray Harryhausen effects.
Exactly.
All right, so we've been talking low budget for the most part. I got a big budget question for you guys, and for anybody watching who wants to post on the message board. The movie Cloverfield is that monster that comes out of the ocean meant to be a Cthulhu clone?
From what I understand, it's actually supposed to be, an American kaiju. It's supposed to be the first American Godzilla movie. The director or producer, who was it, Lindelof? I forget who it is, but had suddenly stumbled on the idea that there were no American giant monster movies,
Right.
which of course is not true.
Yeah.
But there had
giant
to be
praying mantises and everything I can think of from the 50s.
Yep.
Them.
And from what I also understand, there was backstory that suggested that thing was an infant that had accidentally fallen out of a spaceship.
Okay, well, not knowing backstory and not knowing anything other than just having seen the film and nothing else.
And I agree with you. It doesn't pass muster.
It certainly could have been a Lovecraftian beastie of one stripe or another. No,
It just didn't
it didn't come out and hang us some. We weren't watching Batman '66 where it said Bat Computer on it. And we didn't need to. Yeah. Yeah. But I enjoyed that film.
Yeah, I have some.
I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it.
I think I own it someplace. My son might have it.
I thought one of the scarier parts of the film were the little, whatever they were, that were leeching off the creature and went after humans. And that was, in a way, a lot more horrific.
Yes. Absolutely.
In the ending credits, it shows the two of the main characters a few days before, videoing themselves, and in the back you see something fall from the sky into the ocean that no one notices.
Right.
So I'll just throw that out there. You have to watch the credits to be aware of that, though. So who knows? Is that the way? Is this what would happen if Cthulhu rose out of the ocean? Would this be part of what happened? Probably.
Yeah, but I think that it had more to do. Even though it said with no kaiju movies, I thought of more of the beast from 20,000 Fathoms when I saw that.
Yeah.
When it came from beneath the sea. Was that the Ray Harryhausen film was the giant octopus?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's like I'm saying. It certainly could have been a Lovecraftian beastie, but it wasn't necessarily.
Right.
And I like the fact it's like you fill in, you decide what it is.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
What about Europa Report, which I believe is on Netflix streaming also?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
The thing I like about Europa Report is that it's in a lot of ways it reminds me of 2001 in that a great which by the way you could interpret 2001 as a Lovecraftian film, but it doesn't build quickly to the monster. A lot of stuff goes wrong in that film long before you get to Europa.
Yeah.
And it really shows the tedium and the stress and the relationships that would have to be built up and fall apart during a trip like that. And a lot of people were turned off by that. And a lot of people were turned off by the idea that you traveled so far and then you get there and this happens and it's over.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, in many ways that's all foreshadowed for you because they're telling you up front that this did not go well.
Right. Right. You know that going in that something happened.
Yeah. The fact that the money shot is only 15 minutes long, I don't have a problem with that. Can you interpret it as a Lovecraftian beastie? Absolutely. Can you interpret it as just an animal? Sure. Your choice. Same thing with Cloverfield.
Yeah.
Um,
That is not what makes the film Lovecraftian, though. If it is Lovecraftian, I don't
Right.
think. Which we can't say too much about that, but
no.
yeah. What about The Last Winter? Have you guys seen that movie?
I have not.
I have not.
I haven't.
Did you say yes, Rick?
No.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
put that on my list.
yeah.
But you talked about one a couple months ago, Corridor?
Corridor, yeah, great movie.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, you won't like it, Joe. There's a lot of violence.
Oh. Well, you know, I just don't like violence in horror movies.
Yeah.
You know, put it in a noir film and I'm all in, you know, but...
Yeah.
Five friends
When it
spend a
comes to
weekend
horror, I
in a
want
cabin in the
atmosphere.
woods to catch up on old times. Recently, one of them was released from a mental hospital. Apparently, he and his mother saw and heard some strange things that started driving them crazy. I'm quoting my own text here. What happens in the woods that weekend, in my opinion, is an example of a creature from another reality revealing itself to people in this one and how it affects their mental stability.
Yeah.
You know, how would a fifth or sixth dimensional creature, what would they look like to us? You know, for example.
Odd lines, odd shapes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, intrusions into our... Well, I was doing this with the girls in the pool the other day where you take a ball, a clear ball, and you let it go and it floats to the surface and it breaks the surface tension and all these different patterns appear on the bottom of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
They have no real relationship to the ball itself, and you don't see any shadows on the water surface, but because of the changes in density, you see shadows moving across the bottom of the pool. And you can use that as an example of how you might see a three-dimensional... Well, here I have a three-dimensional object casting shadows into two dimensions. So how would a four-dimensional object cast shadows into a third dimension?
And also, have you guys read the novel Flatland? Written
Yeah.
like 120 years ago, something like that. You know, it's about a two-dimensional reality and a three-dimensional, I think it's a sphere that comes to visit.
Right.
And so the sphere that lives in the third dimension, visiting the second dimension, looks like a circle to the two-dimensional creatures, and of course the circle changes size depending on where he's at. You know, that's a good way to think of it. If a square visited a two-dimensional reality, you'd only see two dimensions of that square. You wouldn't see all three. So you're not. The point is, you're not seeing that creature the way he really is, and you can't.
Right.
You know, it's impossible. So yeah, that's my take on the corridor. But regardless of whether you agree with me or not, it is a very good movie, I thought.
Yeah, and similar in vein is a film called Yellow Brick Road.
Oh yeah.
Which is not as violent, but still has some very violent scenes in it.
There is one violent scene in there that I think might be the worst I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
My jaw dropped, man.
Yeah. Well, because it's quiet.
Yeah.
There's no sound.
I don't know how to interpret that movie at all. I definitely put it on the Lovecraftian list, but
yeah, actually, because of the artistic issue there, how it all relates back to some art, it might really fall into a Chambering, a Robert W. Chambers film.
Mm-hmm.
But it does remind me.
I fell asleep like 20 minutes in, and Kat kept, "Are you going to rewatch that? Are you going to rewatch that?" And it's like, because she watched it and liked it. And
yeah.
I just haven't got back to it. But, one of those, she's always amazed because I can do this. And all of a sudden,
yeah.
And then something that's like 3.5 hours long that would put everybody in the universe to sleep. I'm literally sitting on the edge of the sofa.
Yeah, like Stalker.
I mean, I'm
right.
just like, the driest, most boring, especially if it's about politics or spies. It's like, okay, it's a 6-hour movie. Oh, this is great. Do I got 6 hours worth of popcorn in front of me?
No,
the funny thing is, though, is, before I ultimately fell asleep, I was watching the film. I was getting interested.
You were just tired.
Yeah.
And I haven't got back to it.
The other thing that comes to mind, since we're going this direction, is the Masters of Horror episode, Cigarette Burns.
I love that.
That's the King in Yellow done with film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that one.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that you like that film, Joe.
I have it. I own it. I have a couple horror things, not a lot, but some. Yeah, that one's quite wonderful.
The one movie that we can tell Lovecraft fans go see it, but we can't really say why, otherwise we're ruining it, is Clive Barker's Midnight Meat Train.
Oh, yeah.
You can't really say why that movie has a Lovecraftian theme. Otherwise, you're ruining the entire movie.
Right.
All you can really say is go watch it, and you'll understand why.
Right. And if you're going to throw that one out, you have to throw Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
I actually saw that one.
Okay.
Without falling asleep. Yep. I got my arm twisted and managed to get through the beginning without destroying anything. Well, I mean, the first 10 minutes of the movie, I just sitting there going, I'm not sitting through this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what, though? That's deliberate. That's deliberate, though. He's setting it up like every movie that's been like that, and then he twists it around.
I know, but I was for 10, 12 minutes, up until the eagle gets destroyed in that thing as they're going around the cliff. Up
Then we
until
realize
there,
what's going on here.
up until there, man, it's like, if it was 3 more minutes, I would have got up and left the room.
Well, it was
But then you saw that eagle and you sat up and took notice, didn't you?
Yeah, well, yeah.
You were originally getting bored by the office politics talk.
Well, no,
Okay.
that didn't bother me at all. I liked that part. It's just when we were with the young people, and here's the gas station, and here's the weirdo guy. It's like, okay, this is probably going to turn in some direction or another, but I don't want to sit through all of this crap to get there.
But it didn't go on very long, as you say.
No, luckily, because like I said, another 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and I would have got up and left the room, and that would have been that. But I did get all the way through it, and I enjoyed it.
Just one thing. If anybody's watching this on DVD, when they have the blackboard, pause it and read everything on the blackboard.
Oh yeah, it's great.
You'll laugh your head off.
Why? Give us an example.
Molesting trees is all I'm going to say.
Yeah. The blackboard
Okay.
lists all the different monsters that they can release, and also what group of people have taken that as their bet.
Oh, okay.
So.
By the way, I should say to the audience, usually, next Sunday, we'll have the rest of our furniture. So in other words, I'll have my desk and my extra monitor, which I usually, on one monitor I've got you guys, and on the other monitor I've got the Facebook message board, the eZine message board, so I can keep an eye on the comments. Right now I just have my laptop sitting in my easy chair, so it's hard for me to keep up with the comments. So that's why I'm a little quiet on the message board while we talk. But that'll change. Just need that other monitor. Let's see here. What was I going to say? Is The Mist a Lovecraftian film?
Definitely. Yeah, the Mist. The storyline is definitely Lovecraft. The story is definitely Lovecraftian. And yeah, the Mist, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Movie you'll never forget.
No, and I own it. I've only ever watched it twice.
Right.
Yeah, and I know why.
I still remember it. I mean, the same, and
yeah,
it was one of the few movies that improved on had a more unforgettable ending than what was in Stephen King.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I should say this, but it's a good movie that I can't bring myself to watch again because I'm a parent.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel so deeply about it. Really can't say more than that. But I agree, it is a Lovecraftian movie. As is one of my very favorites, The New Daughter, which I always have to bring up.
Yeah, I think The New Daughter is fabulous. Kevin Costner is brilliant in that role.
Yep.
The actress who plays his daughter is probably even brillianter.
Oh, she's astounding. Yeah.
Yeah. And the little boy is just a thrill to watch.
And another grabber of an ending in that movie.
Yeah.
And there's a movie that, like AM 1200, I think one of the really great things about it is the sound design of the film.
Yeah.
What you get and when you get it is right. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie.
and it borrows a little bit from The Mound.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Not
overly.
Not overly, but it's got some conceptual consistency with The Mound.
I've said this to you guys before. We've got a lot of new people watching since I've said it last, so you'll have to forgive me. But that movie is adapted from a short story by John Connolly. And it's in a collection of his called Nocturnes. And The New Daughter is one of the stories. And they've kind of changed the story from when they adapted it, and I think the movie version is more Lovecraftian than the short story. But that said, Nocturnes is really worth picking up because it's extremely well written, and there's several short stories in there that that seem to me to have Lovecraftian themes. But you know, any Lovecraft fans also, most of us, a horror fan too, and you know, I would definitely pick up that. I highly recommend it. So.
And Conley is a phenomenal writer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great writer.
Again, it's called Nocturnes by John Connolly. So, but yeah, The New Daughter. It really is one of my favorites. I've watched it several times. I'll watch it again. It builds perfectly. It's got the ending matches. I mean, the ending lives up to the rest of the film.
Wonderful creep factor.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah. Acting is superb.
So here's a movie that some people disagree when I list it online. No, that's not Lovecraftian. Some people agree. Yeah, it's definitely Lovecraftian, and that's Pontypool. What do you guys think?
Yeah, word zombies.
Say that again?
Word zombies.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it can be.
I'm breaking up.
It can be interpreted as just a zombie film too, I guess.
Yeah, but it's you know, William S. Burroughs and Laurie Anderson and a few of those other people talk about how language is a virus.
Right.
And you know, there have been a rash of in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, have been a rash of cell phone zombie movies, where something in your phone causes you to. There's a signal or a pulse, or you know, Stephen King did it with The Cell, and that'll be filmed very soon. That something in your cell phone turns you into a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, who was it? Neil Stephenson talks about the snow crash virus in the book of the same name, where there's essentially a computer virus that can affect people. What Pontypool does is pretty much the same thing, but just literally with language. That the language itself is carrying something and transmitting something into your brain.
Well, that's a nice explanation, though, in a strange way, for black magic spells.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I haven't seen Pontypool. Perhaps I'll.
Oh, Joe, I think you would love it, actually.
Yeah, and you know, it was
you'd really like.
originally a one set play.
Yeah.
And it was done as a radio drama, I think.
Yeah, what's that movie that you really like? Barbarian Sound Studio?
Barbarian Sound Studio.
Barbarian Sound Studio, yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of that because the protagonist is a talk show host, and when things start happening in the town, it's described over the radio or the phone. A lot of the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think you'd really like it.
I'll pursue that.
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot. For some reason, when I heard about it, I just dismissed it as just another horror film, and you know how fussy I am, you know.
Yeah.
So
it's not just. You know, in many ways, it has all the cliches of a zombie film.
Mm-hmm.
and in many ways, it takes those and throws them out the window.
Okay, that's good.
You know, you can have a building sense of fear and terror just by listening to all the events happen over the radio.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, and
And I'll tell you what, I hate zombie films. I am so thoroughly sick of zombies.
I got no use for zombies, and I never did. I mean,
Yeah, but my point is that I
Night of
hate
the
them.
Living Dead, and it was Friday night, and there I was watching it, you know, opening night, and it's like, yeah, and that was it. It's like,
Well, I guess my point is I
to
don't like
me,
them,
zombies do
yet
nothing.
I really love this movie. And that's coming from a guy that does not like zombie films or books. So
I don't like zombies, period. You know, I want other forms of dead walking around.
Well, it's with Night of the Living Dead, we now associate zombies with flesh eaters,
Right.
which they never were.
well,
In old Caribbean legends, and if you look at the old zombie movies, like I Walked with a Zombie.
yeah.
Which is, if I'm going zombie, that's the direction I want to go.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
I don't.
Well, so we've established that Pontypool is a damn good movie, and it really, really is. I highly recommend it. Okay, but is it a Lovecraftian movie? I feel that it is. I feel it's kind of like The Corridor, where it's a representation of something outside our reality, and this is how we perceive it. But that's my interpretation. I could be wrong, But what are you guys? What's your take?
No, that's a good interpretation. Something has definitely, and whether it's intelligent or not doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Something else has intruded into our reality, and it's manifesting itself through language.
Right.
Okay. All right. That based on that description, that sounds interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, we won't say anything more about it then, but definitely go see it.
Joe, all you need to know is that buried in Pontypool is the word typo.
Okay.
Well, also, don't you guys think that Joe would really like the DJ guy, the protagonist?
He's such a in many ways he's Hunter S. Thompson, the character from
The Damned Highway.
Echo. Yeah. He's a great character. He's over the top, but he's paid to be over the top, and he's made a living out of it. At this point, and he kind of hints, and it kind of expresses this. At one point, he was big, and now he's in some podunk little town doing 5 a.m. weather reports and corn futures. He's hit rock bottom.
Okay.
So,
do any of you?
Well, as soon as you mentioned Laurie Anderson, my ears perked up. So it was like, I'm gonna at least watch a trailer, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's worth watching. I think we only ever see one zombie in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, don't tell me any more. I'll be in search.
Rick, were you going to say something?
Yeah. Have any of you ever seen a movie called The Crawling Eye from the 50s?
I saw that in the back of my parents' station wagon.
But Rick, you know how many decades? You do know how many decades ago that was, Rick.
Right.
I don't remember that anything other than I remember seeing that when I was a little kid.
Yeah. And then the Trollenberg Terror?
Yeah, it's also known as the Trollenberg Terror in the UK.
Yeah.
Well, would you consider that? Pete may be the one who remembers it the best. It's got tentacled monsters from outer space that are cyclopean, living in a mist up in the mountains. Is that Lovecraftian or?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It was a Roger Corman version of Lovecraftian, and maybe on a less budget than he had.
I
But
don't.
yeah, it was an
It was.
attempt.
It's a British production. It wasn't Corman. It was
Right, right,
one.
right. But it's 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 that level of achievement. Um, yeah, I would definitely say it's an attempt to do a Lovecraftian film.
Hmm.
You might have well have just said Dunwich instead of Trollenberg.
Okay.
Have you guys seen a movie called The Shrine?
I love The Shrine.
Yeah, me too.
Um, I don't know. I don't know whether you can say that's definitively a Lovecraftian film
Mm-hmm.
because it could be definitively a Christian film.
Mm-hmm.
There is not enough backstory to fill in what's going on there, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. Lovecraftian or not, definitely watch it.
Yeah.
Um, Sandy Peterson is a big Italian horror movie nut. Um, I was at his house. I go to his house every so often to watch movies, and he introduced me to a movie called Spider Labyrinth.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, late 70s, wasn't it? No, or was it 80s? I can't remember.
It's around late 70s, early 80s, based on the actors who were in it who were recognized from other European films.
Yeah. Um, Professor Alan Whitmore is assigned by his university to go to Budapest to seek out Professor Roth, who has been investigating an ancient religion. There you go. Once there, he is met by Professor Roth's beautiful assistant, Guinevere Weiss. But Professor Whitmore soon finds himself at the center of a mysterious cult involving secrets, murder, and a monstrous, mind-controlling spider god. So yeah, definitely Lovecraftian. I was grateful to Sandy for bringing the movie to my attention.
So actually, you know, the writers who did things with spiders were Robert E. Howard and Clark Ashton Smith.
Say
Yeah.
that again. I'm sorry.
The writers in the Lovecraftian mythos who were playing around with spider gods were Robert E. Howard in the Conan stories
Mm-hmm.
and Clark Ashton Smith in the Seven Keys.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you could almost if you call that spider god Oltag Nacha, then it would have been a mythos movie.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, the ancient religions, the cult and everything. That's all. I mean, it's definitely Lovecraftian themed. So.
Well, you get into a debate here about, you know, because you have things which predate Lovecraft, like the concept of ancient religions go back to Arthur Machen.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Seaborn horror goes to William Hope Hodgson. So you can't, you know, it may end up, you may have movies which end up being Lovecraftian, but their source material may be something that predated Lovecraft.
Mm-hmm.
A good way to get around it sometimes and avoid argument is to say, okay, whether it's Lovecraftian or not, if you're a Lovecraft fan or weird fiction fan, you'll enjoy the movie. So I end up with saying that a lot.
Or it's cosmic horror, but you know, we have to say.
Yeah, which is what I mean when I say Lovecraftian a lot of the
Yeah,
time.
but
You probably
to
should.
me, cosmic horror predates Lovecraft as well. Go back to Bierce,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I mean, if you go to Hayati the Shepherd and an inhabitant of Carcosa, you know, there are a couple of paragraphs in each one of those very short stories that can be pulled out, and you can see how Chambers absorbed them and stretched them out, and you can also see how they tie into Lovecraft. You know, I mean. Hayati the Shepherd, there's one paragraph of description. You know, the sky, the leaden sky pressing down, and you know, just how dead and gloomy everything. I mean, it's just.
Mm-hmm.
the cosmic horror element just saturates the whole passage. You know.
Well, speaking
But
of,
yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
when you're saying, you know, appeal to Lovecraftian tastes, I agree.
Right.
Well, just to go back to what you were saying, Joe, you know, we went into this debate once about the Yellow Sign and the Festival being similar, even though Lovecraft didn't read Chambers, but he read Bierce. And he definitely had Bierce on the mind when he wrote the Festival because he has a reference to the Man and the Snake. He's got some fictional book from that Bierce story. So you end up, you know, both Chambers and Lovecraft may have digested Bierce the same way.
Yeah.
Came out with similar concepts, independent of one another.
Yes, an excellent point. Independent of each other. Yeah. So certainly, you know, we when we mention Cosmos, Bierce does not get the credit that he deserves.
I'll be right back, guys. Go ahead and talk.
You know, but yeah, because and again, Rick, you're absolutely right, because Lovecraft doesn't read The King in Yellow until late in 27, according to the letters. So, you know, he's not even aware of The King in Yellow at that point, as he's initially mythology building, you know. He's aware of others Chambers' work, though. Chambers the Harbor Master, which... Did everybody freeze?
No, I'm thinking.
I mean, the Harbor Master is indeed a big influence on The Shadow over Innsmouth.
Where does he read that?
I think he read that in 19 19. Because, well, if you go to Harbor Master, the reef is actually called Devil's Reef.
Okay.
Did he read that before he wrote Dagon?
He may well have. And the creature, the aquatic creature that Chambers is describing, you know, sounds just like a deep one.
Right.
I mean, it's like, you know how we always say if we were all witnesses to a crime, we'd describe it a little bit differently? Chambers and Lovecraft actually are describing, I think, an entity that's the same entity. You know, the variants are slight.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how Lovecraft reads the Harbor Master and becomes aware of it, but doesn't know about The King in Yellow.
It's just because he may have heard of it.
Yeah.
But he hadn't read it.
Right.
Okay, that's easy because none of us, and Lovecraft as a reader, and as a person, he had other interests as well.
Right.
We don't get to see everything. We don't get to read everything. I'm trying to think of something big that I have not read that everybody would go, oh my God, how can you have not read that? And there must be a couple of things. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I know they're out there.
Yeah.
And everybody's like that. So just because something you think people think you should have read it doesn't mean you have.
Yeah.
There's so much out there. I mean, if I did nothing else for the rest of my life but read, which is very appealing, you still wouldn't get to.
But even in Lovecraft's time, there was an awful lot out there to read.
Yeah.
You know, nobody gets to everything.
Well, and I'm also, reminded that given Lovecraft's financial situation, you just don't go out and buy a book.
Right.
Yeah.
Libraries were important to him.
Yeah.
Right. But in Lovecraft's era, yeah, it probably would have been real easy for him to go out and find Chambers' historical romances or shopgirl romances.
Right, but not The King in Yellow.
But not his weird fiction. Libraries, I would assume, had budgetary constraints the same way we do now,
Right.
and they pick and choose. And when I was a kid, yeah, sci-fi was easy to get in my local library.
Sure.
Horror, weird fiction, not so much. When I discovered it, when I first discovered it in my early teens, in the local stationery store that had a bookstore section, I would see things. My local library had no Robert E. Howard. So, I started buying Conan. Because it was easy to buy. There were the mass market paperbacks. But, we had an excellent library in my hometown, more than one branch. And there was no Robert E. Howard. Fritz Leiber, when I first heard that name, there was somebody there was nothing in the card catalog for my local library for Fritz Leiber.
We're really lucky to be living in the time that we live in, readers are. I mean, for example, we just were at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. Joe, you live in Germany, and you're not a Kindle reader like I am.
Right.
So you're a bit more limited than a guy who doesn't mind reading books on Kindle is. So Michael Sisko says, Joe, you told me, he goes, have you read this, this, and this? And you're like, no, I haven't. Then you're not going to find those books very easily locally. Hell, I might not be able to either. But you can go on to, the Book Depository and get them shipped to you for free.
Right, which
we're lucky to be living when we're living.
Yeah, absolutely. Much easier to get a hold of stuff, much easier to get information about stuff. The free exchange of information via this new vehicle we have.
Did those books arrive yet, by the way?
Oh, they just did.
Oh, good. Okay. Awesome.
And thank you. I am in my glory.
Haha, somebody. Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it.
This has nothing to do with Lovecraft, but just give me 10 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because this is Dan Beachy Quick. It's called the Whaler's Dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
It's this voluminous Moby Dick poetry. This guy's a Moby Dick fanatic. And it's like 266 pages of somebody who's well-versed in Melville and Moby Dick. And the stuff is brilliant. Oh, my God. Okay, I'll shut up.
Well, we're going to recommend Moby Dick crossovers.
Well, there is a Moby Dick Lovecraft story.
Is there?
Yeah.
Well, it's From Pole to Pole has a Moby Dick.
No, there's a someone wrote. I think it's in Historical Lovecraft. They wrote one of the so-called missing chapters of Moby Dick.
Oh, I've got that. I've got to check that out. But I
Have
was
you
just
read it?
thinking, this is not Lovecraftian. Ahab's Wife is an excellent novel.
Yeah.
Moby Dick.
Have you read that story, Pete?
Yeah, I have. I think it was okay.
Okay.
The language is very true to form, which makes it a very difficult read.
No. Melville's not difficult. No. I think Lovecraft was more difficult to read when I was 15 than Melville was.
I found Melville more difficult than Lovecraft.
Yeah, I do too.
Of course, I didn't start with Moby Dick. I started with Teepee. So.
Did you find it, Rick?
I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm trying to look at. They're in the Middle Ages, or I guess it's in modern era. Is that a Joshua Reynolds story?
It might be. What's the title?
Far Deep.
Good writer.
Sounds like something he would do. That's why I just.
Yeah, it might be.
I have to go soon because I got some moving things we have to do tonight. But I have a question for you guys before I go, because I recently read. I mentioned this last night. The Engines of God by Jack McDevitt. And Rick, have you read that, Joe? It's a science fiction book. It was written in 1994. You've read that, right, Pete?
Yeah.
So speaking of cosmic horror, you know, and I don't want to look at everything with a Lovecraftian lens, but it sure seems to have that cosmic horror theme. I would never say Lovecraftian on that book.
Right.
But, you know, there's something out there that's destroying civilizations in the galaxy every 8,000 years or so.
Yeah,
you know, they don't know what it is.
It's very Stapleton. Olaf Stapleton.
Okay.
I don't even know who that is.
He actually was a contemporary of Lovecraft's. He wrote The Last and First Men. A lot of his fiction deals with cosmicism.
Okay.
Focusing on a lot of the same themes that Lovecraft did, but just not in a horrific way.
Mm-hmm.
That the universe spins on without us.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, not only that, but in the Engines of God, there's something out there actively hostile.
Right.
We don't know why.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't think that Moby Dick is in the historical.
All right, I'll find it for you, Rick. I'll go through all my books. It's relatively recent, so I won't have to go that far back.
Because assuming if these stories are in chronological order, which they seem to be, it wasn't in the 1830s where that should pop up.
It might be. I know where it's at. It's in High Seas Cthulhu.
Oh yeah, then I probably read it and totally.
I haven't read that in a while. I remember enjoying that anthology.
Yeah.
Which anthology?
High Seas Cthulhu. Gosh, it's been 4 or 5 years since I've read that, but I remember liking it. Well, we're moving the rest of our furniture in a few days, so next Saturday night and Sunday I'll actually have a desk again and bookshelves and books around me again, so that'll be nice.
Is this the new place, by the way?
What, Pete?
Is this the new place?
Yeah, I'm at the new place. We've been sleeping here for the last week and a half or so.
Okay, it looks very open.
Yeah, it is. It's a loft apartment, a lot of brick, wood. We live downtown in this kind of small to medium-sized town, and unlike a lot of small-town American towns, the downtown is actually flourishing. You know, with antique shops, and I can walk half a block and have breakfast at the deli. I mean, it's really, really cool.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Well, that also means that you don't need 2 cars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's very little we can get done by just walking.
From what Kat reported to me earlier this week, Mike has to stay home more now anyway, because he's got yet another member of the family to take care of now.
Oh, that's true.
Apparently, he opened his window and somebody moved in.
Actually, what happened was my wife brings in this cat, and she's like, "It's raining outside. He's meowing at me. I don't know who he belongs to." So I can't take the blame on this one.
Oh,
So,
Well,
But didn't you
brought
have
him
that?
no, I gotta bring this up because it was something I was gonna bring up. Speaking of cats, sometimes you get movies which are not Lovecraftian, but they tie into something that is part of the mythos.
Right.
And Robert Bloch did all his early stuff was Egypt. And there's a
Right.
TV movie I recommend called The Cat Creature, which I have on a bootleg DVD here. From 1973. And it's about the cat cult in Egypt, and it does tie in a lot to Bruta Bubastis, but there's no mythos. You know, you don't get any references to Nyarlathotep like in Bloch's story. But Bloch wrote the screenplay, so it's part of his Egyptian mythology without being directly mythos.
Okay.
Thanks. Well, good to talk to you guys. Joe, it's really, really good to see you, buddy.
Yep.
Take care of yourself, man.
I'll be around a little more and a little more.
Good.
With a little luck, we start removing staples sometime this week. So,
Okay.
we'll see how many and how quickly.
Well, good to see you, and guys, thanks for the discussion, and everyone, thanks for watching. So,
Yep. Well, great to see you guys again.
Yeah, you too. I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you Tuesday night for our 8 o'clock Eastern Call of Cthulhu game. So,
Okay, cool.
Thanks.